You're watching City Channel 4, your window to our community.
I'd like to call to order the regular formal meeting of the Iowa City City Council for August the 15th, 2017. Roll call.
Botchway.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
Dickens. Mims.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Throgmorton.
Here. Item number 2 is proclamations. I understand that Linda Van Lowe is here tonight to accept the only proclamation we want to read. Linda, where are you? There you are. Okay, good. So let me read this, and then when I'm finished, you could come up and I'll hand it to you. Whereas for over a century, the University Club has played an important role for women in the Iowa City, Coralville area, providing opportunities to socialize with others through luncheons and multiple interest groups. As stated in the University Club's Constitution from 1917, the organization was created to, quote, be broad enough to include the activities of the mature women whose interest centers in the University of Iowa, and yet concrete enough to be practical and effective, unquote. And whereas the concept of a women's group originated with 3 individuals in 1917 and was embraced by 55 charter members, and whereas the University Club initially included faculty and family members, was opened in 1979 to all women of the community who support the University of Iowa, and has now grown to nearly 700 members, and whereas the women of the club have been recognized for undertaking many community projects over the years, including supporting the war efforts during World War I and World War II, including supporting the Red Cross and sending care packages to soldiers, holding informative meetings on women's suffrage, making doll clothes for young girls in the hospital, receiving the 1955 Hancher Award given for promoting respect to other nations, helping newcomers affiliated with the University of Iowa move into the community, and awarding scholarships annually to female students at the university. Now, therefore, I, James A. Throgmorton, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby declare that Iowa City will observe on September the 1st, 2017, the University Club Day. I urge all citizens to thank members of the University Club for their efforts on behalf of the University of Iowa and women in the Iowa City, Coralville area. Linda, could you please come up? You can say something if you want to. It's up to you. No, we go down to this microphone.
Microphone.
All right. Thank you very much. Our club has been around for 100 years, and we're very proud to be celebrating that. Scholarships are a big part of what we do. We will be awarding 3 scholarships this year again. Our biggest group in the club are our newcomers. Those welcome women new to the area and new to the club in the first 4 years of their membership. The newcomers are a great way to get to meet new people and to integrate into the community. And again, we thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move to item number 3. Consider adoption of the consent calendar as presented or amended.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, seconded by Thomas. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cole.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Throgmorton.
Yes?
Botchway.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item number 4, community comment. So anyone who wants to speak to us about any topic that is not on the formal meeting agenda is free to do so now. I'd just like you to come up, state your name, and then take not more than 5 minutes to say whatever it is that's on your mind. We can only take this to 8 p.m., so if there are a lot of people who want to speak, then we'll have to stop at 8. I want to say one other thing, too, which I usually try to get out right at the start of the meeting. Welcome, all of you, to your city council meeting. We're very happy to see all of you, and I'd like to say especially buenas noches to those of you who speak Spanish. I do not, but I guess the 2 words I just said work well. Anyhow, welcome to your city council meeting. It's great to see all of you here tonight. Okay, would anybody like to address us on a topic that's not already on the formal meeting agenda? Good evening, Mark.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
My name's Mark McCallum. I live not far from here on 113 South Johnson. And tonight I attended your work session to hear the presentation from the consultant on the changes on the north side and south side and the parking study that was done as well. The question I have, though, about a year and a half ago, I made a overture to the city regarding a parking improvement district around the College Green Park. And I was brought in to speak with the consultant and give my feedback and about what was going on in the neighborhood. And I guess during the consultant's presentation, I was sort of left, while I agreed with many of the things that are proposed for the north side, and I want to support those things, I just didn't see where College Green was included in part of that plan. And my worry is that something's going to be done on the north side, but not in the College Green area, which also has issues as well. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention, and I'd like to be able to still present. I was told that we had to wait for the parking study because I have been pestering some of you about the parking district proposal that I had proposed, and was told that I have to wait until we get the consultant's report. And now that the consultant's report, I didn't see clearly any indication that they were recommending a parking improvement district around the park. I guess my question is, where do I go from here? It's something I'd like to pursue. I've gotten several neighbors that have signed on over a year ago about considering this. If you don't know much about parking district improvement districts, you could use, what I'm suggesting is that we meter partially around the park, perhaps do a permit system for residents of the neighborhood who live there, so we have the same parking issues that the north side does, but to use the revenues from both of those funding mechanisms for improvements to the park. This could be a model or template plan for other neighborhoods. For example, if you did a parking improvement district on the north side, you might find funding for the brick streets that the city has trouble finding in their budget every year, or other streetlight improvements in other areas as well. So I guess that's all I'd like to put out there, is I'd like to work with the city on a proposal for the College Green Park area. Perhaps this could be a trial program to be looked at for other areas. But again, after sitting through that presentation, I'm unclear as to where I stand on that particular, on my block of the neighborhood with regard to parking and my proposal for a parking improvement district. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. It seems to me Mark raises a valuable question. Could you follow up, please, with Mark?
Sure.
Anyone else? Good evening.
Evening, Council. My name is Harrison Freund. I live at 312 East Burlington Street, number 24. I'm here to address the council about the events that occurred this weekend in Charlottesville. I would hope that everybody who's behind me right now would agree in saying that what happened in Charlottesville and at the University of Virginia was wholly unacceptable and wholly un-American. As a student at the university and as a resident of the city, I would like to ask the council, since the University of Iowa and Iowa City is known as a progressive area, what actions is the council prepared to take to ensure that a weekend that, like what happened in Charlottesville with neo-Nazis, Klansmen, and white supremacy doesn't come to Iowa City and threaten, Jews and blacks and Hispanics in the area?
Thank you, Harrison. I'd like you to know that I've had conversations with Jeff concerning making sure that we are prepared for any kind of emergencies along those lines. I've been drafting a statement to be issued publicly about those events, and to be honest, I just ran out of time. I couldn't finish the statement before our meeting tonight, but I am drafting a statement, and it'll be issued publicly. Anyone else? Raphael.
Good evening. I'm Rafael Morataya. I live at 4419 East Court. I'm here today because I'm really concerned about my kids and another kids at the neighborhood where I live. My kids going to attend the new Hoover, and for the last 2 weeks I've been reaching the school board, and then even I took picture and send it to them. It's no sidewalk. It's no safety cross. And that response from the school district is a plan. It's coming up. Check our website, check the Longfellow website, and then that's it. And then last week I started to speak personally with people and say, hey, you should reach the city because the city has a plan to do a sidewalk. And then when I tell them the sidewalk is going to be built in 1 to 2 years, it's not immediately. So pretty much they blame the city for lack of the sidewalk. And I told them that it's not it's not your responsibility 100% in this. And I went today again and I told the same thing. And then they say that it's working with you and the chief to have a officer to make sure that kids can cross the street in the morning and the afternoon safe. I know you take care of this, but I want to raise this issue because I don't think it's fair that school districts blame everything in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. It's an important topic. We have been addressing it, and I could elaborate on that, but it'd be better if maybe you and I talked later on, or instead of getting into back and forth about it. But we recognize the concern and have been addressing it. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, no one else? Oh, somebody just came in. Kyle, did you want to speak about in public discussion period?
Yes.
Oh, well, okay. About something that's not on the formal meeting agenda?
Yes.
Step up.
Are food trucks on the official agenda that I didn't know about by chance?
No, they're not.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Kyle Seek, Iowa City Mobile Vending Association. I'm here because I sent you guys a memo last week, and I'm just here as one of the show face and briefly comment on any questions, or if you haven't read it yet, just give you a heads up that the food truckers who participated in the pilot program have made some recommendations, and we'd like you guys to consider. And would you like me to briefly paraphrase those, or save that for another agenda item?
I don't know. Did everybody have a chance to read that?
I would say for the
Yeah,
public.
yeah, we've all read it, but for the public, say, yeah.
Sure.
Briefly summarize.
Yeah, briefly summarize. So we 20 different vending locations, 20 different dates, 3 locations. Pretty much the maximum sales each night was around $200. Average ticket $6, $6 to $7, no more than 30 a night. Moving forward, we are interested in having staff and council change the ordinance to allow food trucks in those locations we tested up until 2 a.m. We only had one complaint. DP Doe, the first night of the pilot program, mentioned they had lower sales, but other than that, the entire pilot program, not one complaint, not one accident, not one issue that's been brought to our attention. So we just wanted to follow up that for the most part, it was a great experience working with staff, Simon, Mark Rommel, really great staff, and I just want to say thank you. And yeah, when you guys have time to consider that in your work session, and hopefully we'll keep this ball rolling. So thank
Okay,
you.
good deal. Thank you, Kyle. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, I'm going to turn to item number 5, planning and zoning matters. Item number 5A, rezoning Riverfront Crossings, Prentice Street. This is an ordinance rezoning 2,500 square feet of property from planned high-density multifamily residential, PRM zone, to Riverfront Crossings, Central Crossings, RFC CX zone for property located at 114 East Prentice Street. So, does anybody need to make any ex parte disclosures? No, me neither. I'm going to open the public hearing. Hi, John.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This property is at 114 Prentice Street, highlighted by my mouse here. And this is an image of the building. It's been vacant for many years. In its previous life, it had been an office use, contained residential uses, was the location of the Iowa City Mosque, and was also used by the shelter house, but has been vacant for many years. The applicant would like to convert it into a duplex, and to do so has applied for a rezoning to the Riverfront Crossings zone. The property is in the Riverfront Crossings district. You can see the Midwest One Bank building in the background to give you some context. Duplex is compatible with the mixed-use nature of the Riverfront Crossings district, and in staff's view, does provide an opportunity for an adaptive reuse of an existing building. This is an image of a concept that the applicant would like to pursue by removing some paving and adding some landscaping to the property. Both staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission have recommended approval.
Okay, any questions for John? I don't see any. Thank you, John. Would anybody else like to address this topic? Okay, seeing no one, are any of you inclined not to vote consistently with the Planning and Zoning Commission? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Move first consideration.
Second. Moved by Mims, seconded by Botchway. Discussion.
I think this is a charming little project, and I did the math on this one. I think it's a very small project, but in doing the math, 2 units on a 2,500 square foot lot are the equivalent of 35 units per acre. And looking, when not too shabby in terms of density, and looking at the assessor's evaluation or assessment of the property, it also translates to an assessed value of $3.5 million per acre. So looks can be deceiving, in terms of a small property. That packs quite a value on an acreage basis. So it's a very successful project in that regard as well.
So all our budget woes are going to go away, huh?
Absolutely. I think this is the key, this little project.
Dream on, guys.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mims.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Throgmorton.
Yes?
Botchway.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 5B, rezoning, historic landmark designation for Unitarian Universalist Church, This is an ordinance rezoning 0.20 acres of property from Central Business Support, CB5, to Central Business Support with a historic preservation overlay, CB5 OHP zone, located at 10 South Gilbert Street. Again, does anybody need to make any ex parte disclosures? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Hi, John.
The Unitarian Universalist Church building, it's located at the corner of Gilbert Street and Iowa Avenue, just to the north of City Hall, the building we are in now. The church was constructed in 1907. Consistent with the Unitarian beliefs, it is built in a residential style and does not have elements like a large steeple. A landmark designation is consistent with the objectives of protecting key historic buildings in the downtown, and this is an opportunity to do so. Just a couple more images. This is the interior of the church in 1907, and this is the interior today. Very consistent, very well kept in its original style. Both the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission have recommended approval.
Great. Thank you, John. Any questions for John? Thank you. Would anybody else like to address this topic? Thomas, good evening.
Everybody. My name is Thomas Agron. I'm the North Side representative for the Historic Preservation Commission, and I hope not to reiterate too much of what was just said, but just I'm going to make a few comments. Tonight, the Commission would like to thank Jesse Allen and city staff and city governing bodies for carefully working through a challenge that has faced communities across the nation for decades, and that is what to do when a congregation in a downtown area outgrows their historic structure. This has been a successful example of a developer, city government, and the preservation community working together, and we should all take pride in its commensalistic relationship between our city's important historic assets and that of new development. While it's not the only path, this project is also a successful example of using bonus incentives to save a historic building. Designating 10 South Gilbert as a local landmark is in line with the city's comp plan, which supports preserving historic buildings in the downtown, and based on how this structure illuminates trends in church architecture as well as women's history and Iowa City history, we voted unanimously for 10 South Gilbert to become a local landmark. And your decision tonight will allow a cherished Iowa City building to continue to contribute to our community for the next century. So, thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. Maybe somebody would like to ask you a question.
Uh-oh. Okay.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
Could you say a little bit about Eleanor Gordon? I don't want to put you on the spot too much.
You are putting me on the spot,
Yeah,
actually.
I was hoping Jenna Lee Swain would be here.
I was as well. So these were mostly her comments.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, well, I'll say something about her
Okay,
later on.
please
then.
do. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else, are we inclined to support the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation? All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing.
Move first consideration.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Botchway. Discussion. So maybe I should say something about Eleanor Gordon, since I brought her name up a few minutes ago. I'll just read some text in front of me. One of the reasons this particular building is significant at the national level is through its association with Eleanor Gordon and her pioneering impact on Unitarian ministry and Unitarian church architecture. I understand she was one of about 20 female Unitarian ministers between 1880 and 1930 who pioneered new ideas in Unitarian ministry and church architecture in the West and Midwest. And also, she was instrumental in the acquisition of this property and the residential aesthetic direction of the building. So I think it's important to note that this particular individual, Eleanor Gordon, who I had not heard of before, played a major role in the construction, design, et cetera, of this particular building, as well as in the Unitarian ministry. So I'm pleased to be able to kind of convey that publicly. Does anybody else want to comment on the landmark designation?
I think it's just a culmination of, again, kind of the great work that I think Thomas already spoke about. So, I mean, just excited to see this happen. And again, just kudos to Jesse Allen. I think I tweeted that out that night that we were able to move forward on the developer agreement. You know, it takes a lot to sacrifice some of that time and sometimes money to put that forth. But I think that a lot of people were able to sacrifice some things here and then put together a really good project that ultimately helped this become a designation.
It's a win for everyone involved. It's very pleasing to approve it.
I just would add to what Jim mentioned in that what I think is also important about the building is how different it is and as an expression of a building of religious purpose, and that too was in a way flowed from the fact, to some degree anyway, that Eleanor Gordon and other women viewed the architecture of churches to be, they wanted it to take on a more domestic form, emphasizing family togetherness and comfort over what was more typical of its day. And so we will have this building as a reference in that regard, expressing those values, very different values in terms of how to design a religious building.
Yeah, and I'm pleased to support this as well. It's a 110-year-old building, and I'm just thrilled we were able to kind of figure out how to preserve it while also enabling development of nearby property.
And I think that was the important part of our discussion initially, is that it does serve an important part in the history of the faith community here in Iowa City and downtown. The churches, a number of them are older and of that older architectural structure, and so it was very important to be able to keep this church.
Okay, I did close the public hearing, didn't I? Just to double check.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good deal. Okay, no further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 5C, rezoning, Country Club Estates, Road west of Lake Shore Drive. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 21.77 acres of property located north of Raret Road and west of Lake Shore Drive from rural residential, RR1, that's 4.16 acres, and interim development single-family residential, IDRS, that's 17.61 acres, to low-density single-family residential, RS5 zone. This was deferred from August the 1st, so anybody need to make ex parte disclosures? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. John?
This property is located on the far west side of the city, on the north side of Raret Road, east of Slothauer Road. The part of the property is currently zoned interim development residential, part of it rural residential, and part of it planned development 5 units per acre. It's proposed to be rezoned to single-family residential. This zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan for the area. This is a view of the property today with the Country Club Estates development in the background. This is a concept plan that was submitted with the zoning application showing single-family lots on the property, a combination of small single-family lots that would be accessed from a rear alley, medium-sized single-family lots for a majority of the property, and then some large single-family lots transitioning to the existing development to the east. Really, with this property, the infrastructure issues were the issues. Staff had recommended that the developer enter into a subdividers agreement with the city for installation of Raret Road as a public improvement to the first intersection of the development, so full city street to the first intersection, and then pay 50% of the cost of upgrading the remainder of Raret Road in the future. In the future, that would be when the south side of Raret Road develops. or the city funds that other 50%. The other issue that was mentioned in your staff report was regarding water pressure. City required a water pressure study. That study is complete. Water pressure is adequate for the development, so that is no longer a condition we are recommending. And the applicant has signed the conditional zoning agreement regarding Raritt Road.
Okay, good deal. Any questions for John?
I do, and I'm not sure if I missed it in here, if it wasn't addressed. Does Sloth Hour Road go through right now?
No,
to
it
Raritt
does
Road?
not. It's just right-of-way right now.
Okay, so I'm assuming that someday it will go through.
Unlikely in its current location.
Okay, that was my
Due to
question.
topography, yeah.
Okay. That was my question, was what was going to be put in terms of any kind of design or easement potentially for Sloth Hour Road coming in
Yeah,
right
if I can-
behind those
well,
houses.
it's hard to see on the aerial, but, and Sloth Hour Road is the city limits.
Okay.
But if and when the property on the west side of Sloth Hour Road is annexed into the city, at that time, we would determine the location of it.
Okay,
But given the topography right now, it's a level B farm access road.
okay. That's what I thought, but I just was concerned about the backside of those houses.
Double fronting lots, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
I had a question as far as this development's relation, kind of goes back to Raphael's concern about the new Hoover, its relation to Weber Elementary, and is there going to be sidewalk access then? Because it's very close to where.
Yes, and you'll see when you get the subdivision application, there will be a sidewalk on the north side of Raritt Road, as well as on all the streets.
Thanks.
Any other questions for John?
John, since Raritt Road would not be reconstructed as a part of this project,
Just a small piece of it.
just the small piece to the first
Right.
entrance, what's the condition of the road? I'm assuming it's in pretty good condition.
Pavement, well, I believe it's a chip seal road. It is in fairly good condition. It's a fairly low traffic volume. For an arterial street, it's about 2,000 vehicles a day. But at this time, our engineering department did not feel it needed to be reconstructed.
And how wide is it now?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. It's a county-designed road, so it's probably in the range of 28 feet with no parking on either side. One thing I would like to point out is the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend that because of this 50% payment being made, that Raritt Road be put into the capital improvements program. It would be appropriate that you take that up when you discuss the CIP later this fall.
Okay. Thank you, John. Would anybody else like to address this topic? Seeing no one, are people inclined to support the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Move first consideration.
Second?
Moved by Botchway, seconded by Thomas. Discussion?
Well, I know there were concerns at P and Z on the Raritt Road question, and I'm satisfied that, leaving it as it is sufficient for now. In fact, I measured it on GIS as being narrower than John described it, so it may actually have some traffic calming benefit if it's kept at its current width.
Okay, anybody else? Roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 5D, rezoning Stone Bridge Estates, Thames Drive and Huntington Drive. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 1.59 acres of property located west of Taft Avenue and east of Huntington Drive from medium-density single-family residential, RS8 zone, to low-density multifamily, RM12 zone. Staff requests expedited action.
I move that the rule requiring the ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Second?
Moved by Mem, seconded by Taylor. I should ask, does anybody need to make ex parte? How do you pronounce that, Eleanor? Ex parte or apartheid?
Ex parte.
Ex parte, thank you. Ex parte disclosures? No, okay, thank you. So the motion's on the floor, discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Thomas.
Yes.
Throgmorton.
Yes.
Botchway.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Move final adoption at this time.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Thomas. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Throgmorton.
Yes.
Botchway.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 5E, Stonebridge Estates, Part 10. This is a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Stonebridge Estates, Part 10, Iowa City, Iowa. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Botchway. John, did you want to say something? You sure?
This is the preliminary plat for the rezoning you just approved. Lot 147 at the southeast corner is multifamily. The 4 lots at the corner of Thames and Huntington are proposed as duplexes, and the remainder is single family. It does have a hammerhead intersection at the very north property line to allow for a turnaround in the near to medium term future, but also would allow for the street to extend further north if and when the property to the north redevelops.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I'm assuming there are no questions for John. Council discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Botchway.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Throgmorton.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 5F, Brookwood Point, 5th edition. This is a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Brookwood Point, 5th edition, Iowa City, Iowa. Could I-
So moved.
Moved by Mims,
Second.
seconded by Botchway. Discussion. John?
This is a subdivision that was originally approved in 2005. The applicant is now seeking reapproval because the preliminary plat has expired. It's located at the southeast corner of Weatherby Park, would be accessed from Sycamore Street as well as Russell Drive, running north-south. And this is a view of the proposed subdivision. North is to your right on this image. Does provide a street connection to the west property line.
And that connection will lead to some other road that will be built in the future?
It will, yeah, it would be right about here where my mouse is, so it would connect into the Sand Hill Estates subdivision as that builds out
Okay.
along the south side of Weatherby Park.
And why the cul-de-sac? That's something we're trying to get away from.
There's another existing cul-de-sac right to the north, so this cul-de-sac would be lack of opportunity for a connection in this case.
houses.
Yeah, they have to tear down a building to do it.
Okay.
Stuck with the way things are at some points. I'm assuming nobody wanted to ask John any other questions? Okay, so council discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cole.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Throgmorton.
Yes?
Botchway.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 5G, Comprehensive Plan Amendment, North District Plan. This is a resolution amending the North District Plan for approximately 70 acres west of Dubuque Street, south of Interstate 80, and north and east of Mission Point Road and Mackinac Drive, to modify the land use map, accept a sensitive areas survey, and add certain housing, transportation, and design goals. I'll open the public hearing. John.
Before John gets started, sorry, just a reminder to council that there is active translation taking place tonight, so be slower than usual with your comments. Thanks.
You received a lot of information on this proposal through the planning and zoning meetings. I'll try to be efficient in my presentation. I know there's a lot of people who wish to speak to this tonight. The property is located south of Interstate 80, west of Dubuque Street, outlined in the red outline. It's occupied currently by the Forest View Mobile Home Park. The majority of the west side of the property is undeveloped. In considering a comprehensive plan amendment, the city has two criteria. Number one, circumstances have changed and/or additional information or factors have come to light such that the amendment is in the public interest. Number two, the amendment will be compatible with other policies and provisions of the comprehensive plan. This is the existing North District Plan adopted in 2001. It shows the Forest View community as multifamily and calls for conservation design for a majority of the western part of the property. And this is the proposed land use map. In the red is highway and neighborhood commercial. In the yellow is mixed residential, medium density. And in the brown color is multifamily, medium density development. This is the actual land use map that would be adopted. And this is that same map in Spanish. Regarding the land use map, what changes and circumstances have there been? Over 500 new homes have been constructed. Thornberry Dog Park, commercial and office uses have been established. The Interstate 80 and Dubuque Street interchange has been reconstructed. And the Dubuque Street and Park Road Bridge project is currently underway. Regarding public interest, the proposed development would provide secondary access to residents of the Peninsula and Mackinac neighborhoods who have been forced to evacuate during flood events. And also, homes in Forest View Mobile Home Park were constructed prior to modern safety standards in 1976. The existing North District Plan states that a goal is to maintain and enhance existing housing while providing opportunities for new housing development that complements existing neighborhoods, protects environmentally sensitive areas, and is affordable to people of all incomes and ages. Regarding a commercial goal, the plan states to enhance commercial diversity and activity by encouraging a business mix that provides goods and services to satisfy neighborhood needs, and to focus activity in existing nodes along major arterial streets, and to discourage strip commercial development. As part of their process, the applicant also provided a sensitive areas inventory estimating what lands would be disturbed versus preserved, and there's much more detailed information in your information packet, but this inventory would be used as a guide through any subsequent development process. The applicant's sensitive areas inventory is more detailed than information we currently have. It is generally consistent with the city's sensitive areas ordinance. And the North District Plan emphasizes providing for parks, trails, and open space, and emphasizes conservation design. This is an image of the applicant's concept plan for the development. This plan would not actually be adopted because it is a concept. It will likely change. What it shows is commercial development along Dubuque Street and office and commercial development on the south side of Interstate 80. In roughly the middle of the property, a new Forest View community, which I'll get into in a little more detail, as will the applicant. Townhouse development north of Mackinac Village, and multifamily development further north and east of Mackinac Village. The south central portion of the property is proposed to become a new neighborhood. Western portion would contain townhomes transitioning to higher densities. The applicant has discussed senior living and other multifamily buildings would be proposed. The North District Plan again states maintain and enhance existing housing while providing opportunities for new housing. And this is something we believe this plan does. The change in circumstances, again, the majority of homes where Forest View were constructed prior to modern standards, and the maintenance needs are becoming more of an issue. The build out of the Peninsula neighborhood, there's one lot left in the Peninsula to be built on. And other nearby infrastructure improvements make this property more ripe for development than in the past. Recreating an affordable community, as outlined in the proposed relocation plan, is consistent with the North District Plan affordable housing goals. Regarding the relocation plan, this is a summary. Number one, all residents of Forest View would, on the date a conditional zoning agreement is signed, would begin to receive relocation assistance. Two types of replacement housing are available. One type is single-family homes that the owner intends to construct through low-income housing tax credits. The rent would be $300 per month and would increase at 2% per year. During the first 15 years, tenants would accumulate equity. And after 15 years, they would have the opportunity to purchase the home for an estimated sales price of $42,000, or could cash out the equity and continue to lease the home. Second type of replacement housing is a cash assistance, up to $7,200, and this would be available to residents who are not income eligible. The owner is proposing to provide all residents with advisory services, which include aid in paperwork, preparing to be homeowners, and moving assistance. Staff recommends that the material items from the relocation plan be incorporated into any future conditional zoning agreements. Again, regarding housing, the land uses proposed, particularly on the western half of the property, are at higher densities than the current North District Plan. But the North District Plan goal of providing opportunities for new housing development that complements existing neighborhoods is important in terms of how the development transitions to those existing neighborhoods. Regarding the proposed commercial land use, the North District Plan states it is a policy to create and maintain attractive entrances to Iowa City. Dubuque Street has long been recognized for its scenic character, views of the Iowa River, and woodlands and open space transition into the North Side neighborhood in downtown Iowa City. Discouraging changes in land use that might result in the degradation of the scenic qualities of the corridor will also protect the Dubuque Street corridor. A lot of discussion of this statement at the Planning and Zoning Commission level, which resulted in some of the recommendations that are before you tonight. The change in circumstances is the growing population in the larger Peninsula neighborhood, recent upgrades to the interchange, the North District Plan goal to focus commercial activity in existing nodes on major arterial streets, and the City Council's strategic plan goal to proactively seek opportunities to facilitate development of our interstate entryways in a manner consistent with the strategic plan. So staff recommends that any comprehensive plan amendment include a goal regarding the need for conditional zoning agreement to address and maintain the scenic qualities of the Dubuque Street entranceway. A new public street is proposed, Forest View Drive, which would be a public street that connects Dubuque Street at the point where this arrow is into the Mackinac Village neighborhood. This would be a road that does not flood. It is not in the floodplain and would provide a secondary means of access into and out of the larger Peninsula neighborhood. Forest View Drive would connect to Dubuque Street with a new intersection turn lanes, and a traffic signal. The applicant has completed a preliminary study that does justify a new access point based on the traffic estimates from the proposed development. Basically to help to not have all that traffic use the Foster Road intersection. A new intersection is justified. This road is consistent with the existing North District plan, which also contemplated a east-west street connection. Again, it would help relieve traffic during major flood events and help distribute traffic. And the intersection is compatible with the general goal for safe intersections where traffic volumes support the need for signalization. In summary, creation of replacement affordable housing and a commitment to the Forest View relocation plan are a positive aspect of this proposal and consistent with the North District plan. Provision of secondary access to the larger peninsula neighborhood is a positive aspect. Creation of diverse housing types for a variety of households. Providing commercial and office development at an existing arterial street highway interchange. And a commitment to maintaining the scenic qualities of Dubuque Street entranceway through a conditional zoning agreement. To summarize staff's recommendation, and part of this was amended by the Planning and Zoning Commission, recommend adopting the land use map, accepting the sensitive areas inventory, adopting a housing goal to require relocation assistance to the residents of Forest View, to be offered and made available prior to any demolition of existing homes. A housing goal to have any redevelopment of multifamily adjacent to Mackinac Village to incorporate design standards, setbacks, buffers, low-level lighting, and other methods to maintain the livability of the Mackinac Village neighborhood. Commercial and institutional uses goal to preserve the scenic character of this primary entrance to the city. Any development of property along Dubuque Street must adhere to strict design guidelines imposed through a conditional zoning agreement. And this next goal, number D, is the one added by the Planning and Zoning Commission. A buffer of existing trees and vegetation should be preserved between Dubuque Street and any development. Woodlands in between Knollwood Lane homes and commercial development should be preserved to provide a distance and visual buffer. And for the properties fronting on Dubuque Street, the percentage of preserved woodlands should exceed minimum code requirements. And then finally, a transportation goal that upon redevelopment of the property, access to Dubuque Street north of Foster Road may be allowed, provided the intersection is designed to accommodate anticipated traffic volumes. You'll also see from the minutes a lot of discussion of stormwater management during the Planning and Zoning Commission review, and there are some people here to speak to you about that tonight. You know, at the comprehensive plan stage, stormwater detention, stormwater management, we're not at the design phase for those facilities. But the Planning and Zoning Commission did make a recommendation to encourage cooperation between the developers of Forest View, the Idlewild neighborhood, the city, and any other affected property owners in that watershed. Also, a lot of discussion of the Idlewild stormwater diversion project that is currently under design and is a funded project. It's a lot of information. Be glad to take any questions.
Well, there's a lot more behind it, too.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
I can
Thanks, John.
feel them.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
So it's a comprehensive plan amendment.
That's correct.
All right. So let's imagine a scenario in which the developer cannot, for whatever reason, do a development that the developer wants. would the requirements, the goals and requirements that you just articulated affect any future property owner?
Yes, they would. Those goals and objectives are incorporated into the city's comprehensive plan and would apply to any subsequent property owner or development proposal.
Good. I knew you'd say that, but I just wanted to be clear about that. Not that I think anything's going to fall apart here, but
And I'll admit, some of these goals sometimes can appear to be a little nebulous in that we don't know exactly how they'll play out yet in an actual development proposal. But that would be part of the review process when we get a rezoning or a plan development application.
right, okay. Any other questions for John?
John, on the diversion project, is the intent of that to divert all the stormwater runoff from the upland areas out of the Idlewild drainage?
That's correct. I would say all the overflow runoff, there will still need to be some flow maintained through the ponds in Idlewild for aeration and to keep the water turning over, but that's correct.
And when is that project to start and end?
It's under design currently, I believe meant to be constructed in 2018.
Just to clarify that, and Ron Kanucky's here, he can jump in as well. It's not technically under design yet. We have received design proposals for that. You all will need to approve the design contract. The price is going to trigger your approval, so that should be ready for council approval, I would guess. And Ron, you can shake me off if this isn't correct. Next 30 days, probably sometime in September, and then. John is right. We would look to complete that project next calendar year.
Okay, good. Anything else for John? Thank you, John. I'm guessing other people would like to address us, like maybe the applicant. Steve, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Steve Long with HBK Engineering, and I do have a short presentation here. Switch pages here and you're filling up. First of all, I think I'll introduce, I'll try not to repeat what John Yap just said. We have a number of people here and some kids that are getting anxious to be outside, I think. So I want to introduce, we do have a couple of the owners here, and it's been a really unique project. In my, say, 20-plus years of being in urban planning, I've never been involved in a project like this. The collaboration has been phenomenal between the neighbors, the residents who will be impacted, and the actual owners and developers. And so if you do have questions, we have two of the four owners are here this evening. Ed Cole and Kevin Munson and Sherry Cole. Fortunately, the other two, Justin Bishop and Jeff Maxwell, are out of town. I also would like to, we do have a couple, the co-applicant, Margarita Baltazar, who lives in Forest View, is the president of the Forest View Neighborhood Association, and she'll be speaking a little bit later. And I also want to thank the Center for Worker Justice and Mazahir and Raphael are here as well. Without that collaboration, we wouldn't be here where we are. We've been working together for, I think it's been about 15 or 16 months as a group. And I'll go through a little bit of that right now and give you a little background. Since John already went over the proposal, I will briefly go over this, but the Cole family has owned Forest View Mobile Home Park for over 20 years. And they've been assembling land for the past 15 or so years and waiting for the perfect opportunity. They've had many proposals come to them, and most of the proposals did not care for the Forest View community and that was unacceptable to the Cole family, and so they waited for the right opportunity and they found the right team. So I'll briefly describe, John went over a little bit, but if you look on the west side, again, this is all a concept. the idea is to have senior living on the northwest corner. And then the south is emulating Mackinac Village with townhomes and duplexes. And then as you move east, there's a lot of sensitive areas. In the area that's in green is filled with beautiful mature woodlands, ravines, wetlands. And the name of the development is Forest View, and they want to keep the forest so there's actually a view of the forest. And that's been the theme of this from day one. So the density is being proposed a little bit higher in the woodlands in order to protect the sensitive features, have a higher density. So, still working on heights and things like that. Don't have any, but probably maybe a 4 to 6 story condominium buildings in the woods. And then as we move further east, the new Forest View neighborhood. So the existing Forest View Mobile Home Park has been in Iowa City since 1947, and a majority of the 122 occupied homes, there's 155 lots, and 122 are occupied. The majority, I would say around 90%, were constructed before 1974, which is before guidelines were created to change for safety standards, like aluminum wiring and things like that. So we've worked with the residents for the past 15 to 18 months through the Center for Worker Justice to come up with some plans. We've had charrettes, we've had a lot of monthly meetings, weekly meetings, whatever it takes to come up with what's needed in that neighborhood. Playgrounds, soccer fields, a community shelter, combine the two, community room with a tornado shelter. Currently, in severe weather, either stay in place, go to the laundry room, which does not meet FEMA standards, or you run to Parkview Church. So we're proposing to provide a FEMA standard tornado shelter. And then the highway commercial, neighborhood commercial zone is being proposed as a mix of office and commercial. It's still being formulated. Have talked to a couple hotels that are interested, and through all these neighborhood meetings that we've been having with not just the residents of Forest View, but Peninsula, Mackinac Village, Idlewild, a small marketplace has been discussed frequently, a place to buy a gallon of milk. Right now you have to drive to Coralville or a few miles away. Just want to give a minute. Everything is in Spanish and English, so I just want to give a minute for everybody to see. I guess I already talked a little bit about Forest View, but the idea is we want to have the new neighborhood in the center of the development and really be the focal point. So, to get an idea of who's living in the neighborhood, and I now have over 400 new friends, I myself and a translator, Maria Hope, visited 111 of the 122 occupied homes, and we did that to get an idea of what type of homes to build. And so I asked questions like how many people are living in the home, how many bedrooms are currently there, and income. And with the understanding that only I have this information. It does not go to the owners, it does not go to the developers, it does not go to the tenants association. It sits with me, and it's in a locked cabinet in my office. And through that, I was able to gain very valuable information to help plan for the new neighborhood, and also for future funding sources, which John touched on a little bit. If you have further questions, I'd be happy to answer that. John, you talked about the relocation plan. We spent a lot of time working with the residents and the neighbors and city staff to go over the relocation plan and make sure we have all of our bases covered. Everyone will receive relocation assistance whether you qualify for the new homes or do not qualify, everyone will receive assistance. Again, the area, it's a very complex project. Not only is there the human factor, the relocation of a number of homes, and a mixture of affordable with market rate homes and commercial and office, we have a lot of sensitive areas. We've done archaeological studies, woodland delineation studies, wetland delineation studies, soil borings. Just did a acoustic bat survey this week. I'm sure I'm missing, Judy Joyce is here from Earthview if I miss anything, but the comp plan is very clear about the relocation of the current residents, but also we have a beautiful entryway into Iowa City right now. It's various types of woodlands, and no one on the development team or myself, who have lived here a long time, want to destroy that beautiful image. And we've worked with planning and zoning and came up with some ideas. Part of the tricky part is to pay for the whole development and a lot of the relocation in the homes. Just be blunt, you have to sell some of the prime property. I'll leave it up to the developers to say more about that. So how do we do that and preserve that beautiful entrance? And we're looking at proposing, or P&Z recommended, so there's a 50-foot right-of-way between the edge of pavement and to the developer's or the owner's property. And in addition to that, there will be anywhere from an additional 20 to 40 feet preserved. So the light green is a heavily landscaped, will have to be disturbed for grading purposes. And to preserve as much of the forest as possible in that particular area, we'll be using a lot of retaining walls, essentially, so you limit the grading area. Until there's an actual project, we're very early in this process. Won't have exact, but we want to just make it a point that that's something we want to do. Here are some images that Newman Munson put together to kind of give you an idea. These are always difficult at different times of year. There's different images, but the idea is really, in all likelihood, you won't see what's there. And the old ways of commercial development was it's all about visual, the 150-foot sign and as much signage as you can get. Talked to a number of marketplace and hotel developers, and like myself, I rely on my smartphone or internet when I travel. You rely on a blue sign on the interstate. And everyone we've talked to is completely fine with doing this new model, or for Iowa City new model. So this is what the goal is. The entrance of the new road would have retaining walls to preserve as much of the trees as possible. And again, don't look too closely. There's not a median there, and those are images for later. I think John already went over the proposal. Just some shots to highlight a lot of the meetings we've had and the good participation. I think this one may have been surrounding neighbors. We had a charrette with residents, like I talked about earlier, trying to get an idea of what is needed in the new neighborhood, or what would you like to see, and including the style of houses, which is still being debated. I should add, these are going to be homes on a permanent foundation, kind of shotgun style with a front porch and narrow and long, but they will be stick-built homes on a permanent foundation. It's just a shot we had in this room right here. So now at this point, I'd like to have Margarita Baltazar, who's the president of the Forest View Neighborhood Association and the co-applicant come up and say a few words? Maybe? Margarita?
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, Margarita.
Hi. Bueno, buenas noches.
Good evening.
Bueno, ya saben, mi nombre es Margarita Baltasar.
My name is Margarita Baltasar.
Yo creo que no es la primera vez que estoy aquí frente a ustedes. Ya
I
he
think-
estado varias veces más.
I think this isn't the first time I'm in front of you. I've been here various times.
Ok, pues estamos aquí, la Asociación de Forest View, junto con los demás residentes.
We're here as the Forest View Tenants Association together with many of the residents.
Para apoyar este proyecto. Perdón. Para apoyar este proyecto.
In order to support this project.
Porque es un proyecto que beneficia a nuestra comunidad, a nuestros hijos.
Because it's a project that benefits our community and our children.
Pero antes de llegar a este punto, a esta meta,
But before we arrived at this point or this goal,
hemos pasado muchas cosas juntos con mis vecinos.
we've gone through a lot of things together with my neighbors.
Para esto, nos hemos educado, hemos tocado puertas, hemos organizado a muchas personas.
We've educated ourselves, we've knocked on doors. Nos hemos unido?
Ajá, unido.
We've organized ourselves, that's what she said, and united.
Repartiendo volantes, invitando a reuniones.
Passing out flyers, inviting people to meetings.
Aunque a veces mis compañeros dicen, otra reunión, salimos del trabajo y corremos a las reuniones.
Although sometimes my neighbors say, oh, another meeting, we run from work and come together.
A veces estamos cansados del trabajo, los hijos, pero venimos a apoyar, a luchar por este proyecto.
Even though we come tired from work and with our children, we've come together to struggle for this project.
Porque como yo he dicho siempre, organizándonos para luchar por algo bueno, siempre vale la pena.
But as I've always said, organizing ourselves to fight for something good is always worth the difficulty.
Entonces, siempre hemos estado en las reuniones cada mes.
We've been in meetings every month.
Con los socios, los desarrolladores.
Together with the developers.
Hemos estudiado cambios, hemos estudiado metas, hemos escuchado la opinión de cada persona.
We've studied changes, we've studied our goals, we've listened to the opinions of each person.
También respetando las opiniones de cada persona.
And respecting the opinions of each person.
Y aquí seguimos con esta organización después de tantas reuniones, tantas luchas, como he dicho, aquí estamos en un punto tan importante para nosotros.
And now, after all those meetings and all those challenges, we're here together in this point, en este punto
tan importante.
And in such an important point.
Tan importante. Sé que este proceso es largo.
I know that this is a long process.
Y también aquí hago un llamado a mis vecinos que no se desesperen porque esto es largo, pero es un proceso que va a llegar a un punto final feliz.
I've called a lot of my neighbors and said, don't give up. This is a long process, but we can arrive at a joyful point.
Y seguimos en la lucha para lograr un sueño anhelado.
But we're continuing in the struggle to arrive at a dream that we desire.
Para mis vecinos, para los niños y también para personas ya grandes de la tercera edad.
So that we can fight for this for our neighbors, for our children, and even seniors.
Sí, porque son los niños y las personas mayores, yo creo que necesitan más protección, necesitan más apoyo.
Because it's the children and senior citizens who need the most protection, the most support.
Y me he llevado una experiencia muy bonita en este trayecto.
In this trajectory, I've had a really beautiful experience.
Porque he empezado a conocer más a mis vecinos.
Because I've really gotten to know more deeply my neighbors.
A lo mejor vecinos que antes yo ya me comunicaba con ellos.
Neighbors who maybe, you know, once in a while I communicated with them before.
Pero hay vecinos que yo los veía, pero nunca me comunicaba con ellos.
But there were neighbors who I saw, but I never really talked to them before.
Entonces nos conocemos. Un ejemplo es Donna.
And now we really know each other. One example is Donna.
Porque yo la veía y le decía hola, pero ahora ya platicamos a veces, aunque yo no hablo el inglés muy bien.
I saw her and I used to just say hi, but now I can speak to her even though I don't speak English that well.
Mi otro compañero con el que vine hoy, que la verdad no sé bien su nombre, pero que he empezado a tener un poco más de conversación con él.
Another who I came with today who, I don't even know his name, but I've started to talk to him a lot more through this process.
Entonces, yo creo que la asociación está abierta para todas las personas.
The association is open to all the people.
Y entendemos que muchas personas no pueden venir por el trabajo, por el transporte.
We understand that there are people who can't come because they're working or because of transportation challenges.
Por muchas cosas, pero esta asociación está para todos.
For many things, but this association is for everybody.
Y seguir adelante.
And we're going to continue forward.
Y yo creo que ustedes son unas personas que van a tomar la decisión y van a apoyar un voto justo.
And I think you're the people who are going to make the decision and who are going to make a fair, just vote.
Porque ustedes, yo sé que siempre trabajan y siempre cuidan el bienestar de las personas.
Because I know that you always work hard to take care of what people most need.
Okay, confiamos en ustedes. Muchas gracias.
We trust you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Margarita, am I right in understanding that you support the comprehensive plan amendment?
Es correcto si entiendo que tú apoyas el cambio enmiendo del plan comprensivo.
Son cambios a lo mejor necesarios que se han hecho y sí entiendo los cambios.
There are changes that I think son cambios que a lo mejor son buenos.
Sí, son,
there are changes that I believe are good changes, and I understand the changes.
Pero siempre y cuando no afecte el bienestar de mi comunidad.
As long as they don't affect the well-being of my community.
Todos los cambios que hemos hecho, yo le he platicado.
O sea, la pregunta es si apoyas este plan.
Sí, sí apoyo este plan, pero siempre, y los cambios, dijo, ¿verdad? ¿Los cambios?
No, sí que está bien.
Perdón.
I just wanted to make sure that she understood.
Siempre y cuando no afecte el bienestar de mi comunidad, de mis vecinos, apoyo este plan.
I support this plan as long as it affects positively the well-being of my community.
Good, thank you.
Porque como dijimos, ellos ganan, pero también nosotros podemos ganar. Entonces queremos nosotros ganar y ellos ganar.
We want, because we believe that they can win and we can win, and we want both sides to be able to move ahead or to win.
Entonces sí apoyo el proyecto.
So yes, I support the project.
Siempre y cuando mi vecindario, mi familia, mis amigos no estén afectados.
As long as my neighborhood, my family, and the children are not negatively affected.
Good. Gracias. All right, who else would like to speak? And I would like to ask you to keep your comments down to, I don't know, how many people want to speak? Would you raise your hand if you want to speak? Yeah, would you keep your comments to not more than 5 minutes, please? I'll be pretty strict about that. All right, who would like to go first?
We have 4 speakers. Can we give our time to the main speaker?
No. No, it's just focus on 5 minutes, please. So who wants to go first? Yeah.
Been elected. My name is Donna Davis. My husband and I have lived at Forest View since 1985. Before the Coles had the court, it was really pretty much a transient population. There were families who'd lived there for a long time, but it mostly seemed to be students and people who weren't going to live there very long. When the Coles bought the place, it just became much more family-oriented and much more like a neighborhood, and increasingly was someplace that we were pleased to live. And when this whole question of the sale of the trailer court came up, it was really terrifying. But the more we've worked together, the more it seems that something good can come from this. And we're all just so excited, and we've all worked so hard. And so I'm hoping that you will consider passing this, because I think it's a good plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Stana. Good evening, Ed.
My name is Ed Cole. I'm one of the owners and developers. And Forest View is really grabbed my wife and I by our heart. And we are huge advocates for affordable housing in our area. We recently purchased the Hilltop Mobile Home Park, and we have communities that these are the workers. These are the hotel workers, the restaurant workers, the people behind the scenes that run Iowa City. And this is an opportunity for all of them to have ownership. And it's just it's a really awesome project, and I just really hope you guys support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed.
Hi, my name's Martha Kirby, and my husband and I live at 400 Foster Road. And I just wanted to make a couple of very quick points. First, on the history of this area, I am as near to an Iowa City native as you can get without being one. And my parents, when they were first married and students at the University of Iowa, they lived in Forest View. And I'm afraid that that was in the late 50s and early 60s. My 3 oldest siblings were born while they lived there, and I think that trailer is probably still in Forest View. My husband and I purchased 400 Foster Road. It's about a 9-acre piece of property. We completely rehabbed our home, geothermal, new wiring, new everything, and this is probably going to be our last home. And so we feel very, very tied to the area. The Forest View new neighborhood is going to directly abut our property, and there will be many, many homes right against our property. And my husband and I are here to give full support to this project. As a resident of Iowa City, this is an amazing thing to see the city step forward and make sure that people have a pathway to homeownership. So I commend the Coles and the developers for making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Hello, my name is Margarita Rodriguez. I came here to Iowa City back in 1990, so I've been here, 26 years. I moved right into Forestville Trailer Court. My kids grew up here, they went to school here, and they're gone, but they're coming back, I know that, for sure. Also, I want to say that this project that's going on, I'm really happy about it because we never had the opportunity to have what I'm going to have. So I want to say thank you very much, and what you all decide to do, it matters. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Margarita.
Oh, they're having a hard time. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Angélica Ortiz.
My name is Angelica Ortiz.
Y yo
I'm sorry, could you say her name again?
Angelica Ortiz.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah.
En Tengo 21 años viviendo en Forest View
I have 21 years living at Forest View,
y tengo 3 hijos.
and I have 3 children.
Nosotros estamos, desde que llegamos, muy contentos porque la familia Cole
Since we've been there, we've been very happy because of the Cole family.
nos trata como familia.
They have treated us as family.
Mis hijos se sienten muy contentos de vivir ahí y no se quieren mover a otro sitio.
And my kids have felt very happy to live there, and they do not want to move to another place.
Y a mí me gusta también porque, como a diferencia de otros chicos, ellos hacen mucho deporte ahí.
And it makes me very happy of all the kids that play sports there.
Pues solamente para que ellos tengan un apoyo, ellos se sienten ahí muy contentos con la familia Cole.
And that they have support and feel very happy with the Cole family.
And don't want to move, so
And they don't want to move.
I wondering if you can support. Estoy pidiendo si pueden apoyar al proyecto, por
And
favor.
I'm asking that you support the project, please.
Porque pues con tantos años conocemos todos los vecinos y todos estamos muy contentos de vivir ahí.
With all the years that I've known all the neighbors, we've been very happy living there.
Eso es todo.
Thank you, Angelica.
Thank you.
Angelica.
Gracias. Thank you.
Good evening, Kurt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I need to do a couple things here. That there. And I've got something on here. I think I can, it's on the desktop, I think. Oh, there it is.
Is it a PowerPoint?
Yeah, I put it up in the corner here. How many people does it take to operate? There it is.
You're good, okay. there we
Thank
go.
you. Thank you very much. My name's Kurt Kimmerling. I'm the president of the Idlewild Homeowners Association. We're a 92 properties that are abut Foster Road and Taft Speedway. Our neighborhood's the first one you see when you enter into the Peninsula neighborhood on the left side, so we serve as the entrance to that area of the city. The Iowa River's to our south, and to our north is 110 acres that drain through the Idlewild property. This is a image of the Idlewild property from above. This is Foster Road, just to give you some orientation. This is north. This is Foster Road. This is No Name Road. This is the Elks Lodge property. This is Taft Speedway, and the Iowa River's below us. For those of you that weren't around in June of 2008, you may not realize it, but we did flood in 2008. This is some images of Idlewild after the flood of that June. This is some water that was from the river coming into the community. This is the aftermath of that. This is what we had to do to all the properties in Idlewild. We had to remove all the wallboard and mitigate any kind of mold and water damage. This is another image of Idlewild right after the flood. We don't bring this up to dwell on the past, but just so you would understand the sensitivity of the 92 owners, that we are very sensitive to water and water issues. In 2016, we constructed a levee along Taft Speedway and along the east side of Park Road, our Parkview Church. This levee is built to a 100-year flood plus 6 inches, which is sufficient to protect us from flood waters you want your 100-year flood description. I wanted to give you a little idea of what our stormwater conveyance system is. We have a south pond, we have a north pond, we have a stormwater basin in the northwest corner of the property, which takes all the stormwater from Foster Road between the Elks Lodge and No Name Road, and it takes all the stormwater from the 110 acres that are above us, collects it all, and then sends it to our south pond through a 36-inch pipe. This image here is another image of our levee along the Parkview Church. This is what we call the Idlewild Stormwater watershed area. This is Idlewild here. This area of the watershed drains directly into our north pond through the Foster Road storm sewer system. This area here is the acreage that drains into our northwest basin and then into our south pond through a 36-inch pipe. And this is the Foster Road stormwater system that drains into the Foster Road stormwater system and then into this northwest basin and to our south pond. Here's a short trip through the Idlewild stormwater system. This is the property to our north and west. There's a stream here which collects all the water north and west of us. It runs down through this stream, under this driveway, and into these two 24-inch pipes that travel under Foster Road, and then into this stormwater basin. From this basin, which collects all the water from Foster Road and the 110 acres, it travels through a pipe. It's in here, right in here. Drains through a 36-inch pipe to our south pond. From our south pond, it travels down to the east to this opening. This is a 48-inch pipe that empties into the Iowa River. This is the levee that we constructed. This is what we call a sluice gate. We can shut these things when the river's high so the water doesn't back up into our ponds. Since the Forest View development was announced in 2016, we've attended many neighborhood meetings, planning and zoning meetings, have met with the developer several times and the city's engineering staff. Recently, we attended a meeting with the developer and the city staff, including the city manager, to discuss our concerns. We'd like to thank everyone for all this time they've spent listening to us. It's very important, and we appreciate it very much. And a special thanks to the developer and Jeff Maxwell, who spent a great deal of time with us trying to sort out some things. Through these meetings, Idlewild developed what we think is a reasonable proposal to address our stormwater concerns. Firstly, we'd like the city to form a stormwater district for the Idlewild watershed. This is the Idlewild watershed again. The district would be administered by its stakeholders, namely the city, Idlewild, Forest View developer, and any subsequent homeowner association and business that may locate in the watershed. We'd like this district to manage the stormwater retention systems. The district would also manage and fund maintenance of any future projects to mitigate stormwater runoff. Secondly, we'd like the city to complete construction of the Idlewild Stormwater Diversion Project prior to any work commencing on the watershed. The diversion project will relieve Idlewild's stormwater system during certain high rainfall events by diverting water around Idlewild and conveying it directly to the river. There was a question earlier about what this diversion system would do. It won't divert water unless it's a high rainfall event. I think it's a system of weirs and pipes. If you can imagine an emergency drain on your sink that's up above, when the water gets too high, it would go into another pipe and then run to the river. In this way, we can still keep water running through our ponds and keep them fresh and aerated. And finally, we'd like you to think about increasing the scope of the diversion project and include some sort of pumping facility for us. During certain high river conditions, we have to shut the sluice gates on our levee. If you look at the data, river data since 1976, about 2% of the time we would have to have these sluice gates closed. That's a great deal of time, and when those gates are closed and we get rainfall events, the water that accumulates in our ponds we have to convey over the levee through a pumping system. We don't have that system at this point. We proposed in our July 14th meeting that we share the cost between Idlewild, Forest View, and the city. And in fact, Idlewild offered perhaps $100,000 towards this pumping station.
Kurt,
Yes, sir. My 5 minutes up?
yeah, the limit was 5, and you're about at 7.5 or something
Uh-oh.
like that now.
Thank you.
You got the 3 main points across, though, right?
I
Your
did.
Three recommendations.
Okay, thank you
good
very
deal.
much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Oh, thank you. And good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council.
Please
I will
state your name.
respect your 5-minute time limit. I can sum up my
Excuse me,
feelings
please state
about
your
this
name.
project.
Excuse me, sir. Please state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dale McGarry, and I reside at Forest View.
Thank you.
I can sum up my feelings about the project by quoting a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission who stated, quote, "I began reading the project and I had to set it aside because I couldn't believe it. It was too good to be true. I am proud to have met the team of humanitarians who have brought this proposal before you, in particular the Cole family and the Forest View Tenant Association, and who are reaching out to those less fortunate than they are, have set a fine example to developers across the country, as I can foresee this project making national headlines should you approve. Because it is unprecedented, and more importantly, it will send a message to our president and our elected officials in Washington that making America great begins with acts of kindness and reaching out to those among us who are needing a helping hand. So please join us in setting a new standard for developers and reminding America why the Heartland has a big heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Who's next?
Good evening.
Good evening. Would you restate your name, please?
Let me stick this in before I get in trouble. My name is Ivan Hall. I live at 14 Idlewild Court, Iowa City, and I'm an original flood victim. And if you don't know what 42 inches of water's like being in your house, talk to me sometime. We in Idlewild fully support all the great things that the developer wants to do for the low-income housing people up at the top of the street, what they're going to do for the peninsula in making a secondary bypass road because they need a second way to get out. But I just wanted to point out a few things, and Kurt did an excellent job of talking about the plan or coalition we're trying to put together, including what he didn't get to say is the developer has suggested 25% of whatever it is he would be gracious to cover. So we have going in the original budget for the plan as it stands, expansion to the pump station, which there may be enough money in there. We just don't know yet, right? Because we haven't got the details in. But the site is a challenge. If you haven't looked at the topographic maps, it's not flat. It's at an angle. It's going to be the challenge for the developer. I'm sure he'll get it done, but it just takes away flexibility of what you do with the water, and with all the developments going to be up top, the potential to change the direction of the water, where it'll go where you didn't think it would go, is high. The footprint, 2 to 3 hotels, gas station, businesses, offices, whatever. There's a lot of trees that won't be around to absorb the water. but we're willing to do our part to meet people more than halfway. Kurt showed you the investment of the berm. We did that ourselves. And I think with this last plan, we have an opportunity between us all that we can do that. And I just wanted to cover just a couple of things that Kurt wanted to say, didn't have time. We want to worry about the future of stormwater management for the peninsula in its entirety. That's why we suggest creating this coalition of our management of the water for the peninsula itself, where everybody that has a vested interest can participate. There's a thing called NPDS. It's an agreement you have with the state and the federal government to protect people from stormwater damage. We think the suggestion we've made will provide that protection and do the best we can do. And then the rest will be left with the developer to do creative technology things, which he's talking about, to absorb the water as it is up on the hill. And we think working together we can achieve all the goals, the housing, the development, and the protection of Idlewild. The first go around with the flood, we were missed, I guess, budget priorities and other uses. We really didn't get any investment. We understand how that works, but we really can't do anything about the water going to be potentially thrust down on us from the stormwater management because it's induced. Because right now we can survive it, but if you do all the development and disturb the land, we don't know if we can handle that. So thank you very much for your efforts. And we'll be glad to help provide information and continue to work with the city so we can achieve this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Botchway. Discussion.
Well, there's a lot of information that we got, to put it mildly. And I think the important thing for me is remembering that tonight we're at the point of a comprehensive plan amendment. I know I sit here, and I'm sure the rest of council does, feeling like there's an awful lot of details that still need to be refined before I'm ready to go forward with this. In general, concept-wise, I am totally supportive. I want to commend the Cole family and the other owners and developers for the work that they have done to replace the housing for the members, residents of the Forest View Park. And probably in many cases, given the comments about the age of some of the trailers, probably a lot of them will be higher quality residents. So I think that is obviously a great thing for people. And the opportunity, in spite of this development, to be able to live in the same location, which is really important to people. For me, the other things that are really important as we move forward is preserving the character of the Dubuque Street corridor. Many people have talked about that. We have correspondence related to that. That is a premier entrance to our community from the interstate. And I think the design that comes forward as we move forward with more regulatory changes is going to be very important. I think it's very clear from the last comments we've had, and certainly having been on the council now 7.5 years, to make sure that as those details come forward, that the stormwater is dealt with in a way that does not put Idlewild in any more danger than they already are in terms of flooding. Protecting the sensitive areas, I know there's concern with some of the changes that might come with this, making sure that while some trees obviously are going to have to be cut, some areas disturbed, earth moved, doing it in a way that preserves and enhances the beauty of that location as much as possible. One of the one of the benefits certainly that the city is getting out of this is that secondary access to the peninsula, which is incredibly important. As I think was mentioned tonight, there may be just one lot left to be developed out there, and the last thing we need is to be telling however many residential units there are out there, 500 or whatever, that they need to evacuate even though their houses aren't flooded. So to get that secondary access without having to put the millions into raising Foster is certainly a benefit for the city. So I totally support the comp plan amendment. There certainly are significant details that are very important to me that are addressed appropriately when we get to further stages down the road.
I think reflecting on what Susan's comment, I believe it was Steve said that this was a very complex project, and I think that is an understatement. It has many elements and factors that had to be considered along the way, right down to, as was discussed, this type of signage for the businesses. I mean, you wouldn't even think about that kind of a factor. But as I've watched this process unfold, it's just been very encouraging to me, because we as a council often speak of Iowa City being an inclusive community, and I think this really speaks to that we care about people and their living conditions, and that they're happy living in Iowa City. The collaboration that's gone into this has been amazing, and I commend everyone, as others have said, for their involvement in this. But I do, and I'm in favor of the amendment, but I do have concerns and hope that the Idlewild stormwater issues will continue to be addressed and dealt with the same sincerity that the relocation concerns have been addressed.
I would concur with Susan and Pauline. There's obviously a lot of details and the complex nature of this that I think need to be continually discussed, and I think will come before us in the coming years. But I will digress just a little bit because I am very excited about this plan and what it shows me as far as collaboration with this community. Empowerment, collaboration, sacrifice. I believe that all these elements are important, and I think that we talked about that a little bit briefly when we talked about the Jesse Allen project. But sitting down with residents and including them in the process is not only a statement about the Coles and the other developers that are in the room today and not able to be here, as I think Mr. Long talked about as well, but is also a statement about the Forest View community, the Idlewild community that's here, and the many communities that are represented in the area. I remember not too long ago, I think it was Jim and I, or Mayor Throgmorton and I, in a open field, pasture, I guess, talking with, meeting with the Coles, meeting with different members of the Forest View community. I came away from that meeting thinking that we were a very far way away from looking at this project. I had positive feelings about it, but I definitely felt like, there were a lot of different viewpoints that needed to be addressed, concerns that needed to be heard. I'm just excited that within, even though it seems like 15 months is a long period, and from council standpoint, that's still a short period of time that people have really put a lot of time in and sacrificed just time with their kids, work time and other things to put this project before us and make it easy for me to support this resolution. So again, as I agree, I think there's a lot of details that I think need to get worked out, and staff and everybody in the audience has their work cut out for them. But I think that this is an amazing project, and I'm glad that as a collaborative group, you've come here today and really supported this resolution.
I think the word that comes to my mind is inspiration. What I see here tonight is one community standing united from all walks of life with a shared vision and shared values. So often with development projects, we see division, we see displacement, we see conflict. And I think there were a lot of steps along the road while we're just at this preliminary stage of the comp plan amendment where this could have gone into division, this could have gone into displacement, but it didn't go that way. And I think that's a real tribute to Ed Cole, to the development team, to HBK Engineering, to the Forest View residents, because I think really what this required was trust. And that trust, I think, was earned. I know that we still have a lot of different steps along this path, but I think for me, as I look out this community standing together on this project, I am completely inspired by the work that you did, because so often people come to us expecting us to solve all of your conflicts. Well, we can't do that in this forum all the time, but you were proactive and you addressed a lot of these extremely difficult issues. So we're not going to have a development that leads to division or displacement. What's exciting about me is that we're going to have a development project where will be growth and benefit for all. And so I just want to thank all of you for all of the incredible hard work that has been done and for the remaining work, because I know that, as Susan points out, there's a lot of difficult issues that we have to address. And as to the stormwater issues, that is an issue near and dear to my heart. That is something we're going to monitor very closely. Please email us, contact us via phone. That's what our job is to respond to those. I like the concept, although we'll obviously have staff to weigh in on this, of a stormwater district. We'll obviously have to get a lot of details to see whether that's something that's feasible. But from what you've outlined tonight, obviously you have realistic concerns on the issue of stormwater. So help us monitor that so we can address that issue. But I have a lot of confidence in the HBK Engineering and their skill set. So just thank you to everyone for all the great work that you've done.
Yeah, this was really a remarkable project with extraordinary number of conversations. I just think, Steve had mentioned all the conversations he had. There were so many conversations that went into this development process, which did, in the end, from what we're hearing tonight, bring the community together. And that's an extraordinary achievement. The increase in the intensity of the development over what is now in our comprehensive plan did raise a number of issues. Whether it's the relocation of the Forest View residents, the stormwater management, natural area protection, the Dubuque Street corridor, which is Iowa City's front door. It's our most beautiful and most iconic element as a way into Iowa City. The interface with the adjacent development. There are just so many factors that, the impacts, potential impacts, really needed to be addressed very carefully. And as we've been saying, it's at a preliminary stage. We're talking about a comprehensive plan amendment. But I think the framework is well established. Additional conversations will need to take place. But I think what's so impressive is that the foundation for those conversations have been established through the process as it's played out to this point. So I'm very supportive of it. I think there are really, truly landmark aspects to it. I would say particularly the emphasis on the nature of the Forest View development has been extremely well articulated. One of my personal interests are related to this project are how the open space component will be developed. And I would say at this point, it's the new Forest View neighborhood, whereas as Steve laid out, there's been considerable discussion as to what that needs to be. And I would like to see that same level of articulation for the open space component developed as the rest of the project is fleshed out. But it's an extraordinary effort. Everyone involved needs to be commended for it. I think it had 4 P&Z meetings. I mean, the P&Z Commission really went through the ringer on this one. So thanks to everyone for their work.
Can I make one other comment,
Sure,
Jim?
go ahead.
Just very quickly. One thing I think that's really important that we not lose sight of in this being, I think, a really unique situation, and Steve Long mentioned this, is we have taken, I think, a very strong stance in terms of relocation and relocation assistance, particularly with large areas. There's 2 reasons in my mind that this is working the way it is. There's lots of other factors, but 2 key ones. One is Ed Cole and his family care about this community, and we're committed to bringing in partners that would care as much and work with them to deal fairly and give people a good home. So his and his family's values and caring for people was number one. Number two was the comment that maybe slipped by some people, and that was the fact that to do that, they have to sell property. Okay? That relocation does not come at a cheap cost. So as we move forward, I mean, I still believe that we have to look carefully at the Dubuque Street corridor and the stormwater and everything else. But the fact is that that relocation will not occur if they cannot successfully develop and sell property so they can pay for the relocation. A lot of the other places we've looked at, there hasn't been that option. There hasn't been other property to sell to pay for relocation. So that's kind of a unique aspect here that's very important and important that we not overlook.
I just realized I haven't closed the public hearing, have I? Did I close it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I didn't check my close the public hearing box. Okay, so my turn. I remember very clearly being in this room about 15 months ago when the room was full of people feeling very, very anxious about being displaced from their homes. And now here we are, looking at a comprehensive plan amendment that holds out the promise of making it possible for people to continue living in the Forest View area in better housing, along with all the other elements of this development proposal. It is an extraordinarily difficult and complicated proposal, one of the most complicated ones I've seen in years of looking at this kind of stuff. So I think the development team, Ed Cole in particular, and the folks he's working with, HBK, the Tenants Association, the neighbors who live nearby and would be affected by the development, the Idlewild folks who have spoken so articulately to us tonight, all deserve a great deal of praise for all the time and energy they've put into this effort. And I should mention the city staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. So we are at a really important stage of being able to approve this comprehensive plan amendment. But like Susan and others have said, there's a great deal more work to come. And, you know, it's all about, you know, a preliminary plat and a final plat and things like that that are really hard to understand unless you're deeply immersed in this kind of process. But we're at a great moment right now, and I'm very thrilled, actually, to be able to support this comprehensive plan amendment. Okay, any further discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mims.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Throgmorton.
Yes?
Botchway.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Could I have a motion to accept correspondence, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Botchway. Moved by Botchway, seconded by Mims. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, some of you may want to leave. I don't know, I'm just guessing. Please feel free to leave, or we'll just take a short break while you're moving out. And thank you all for coming.
That'll clear the house.
Looks like the party's over.
Yeah, everybody's leaving.
Maybe the party's just moving somewhere else.
Yeah.
Moving on.
All right, I think we can move on to item 6, 2017 sewer rehabilitation. This is a resolution approving plans, specifications, form of agreement, and estimate of cost for the construction of the 2017 sewer rehabilitation project establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'll open the public hearing. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Move resolution.
Second. Moved by Botchway, seconded by Thomas. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 7, School Speed Zone, Horace Mann Elementary School. This is an ordinance amending Title 9 entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 3 entitled Rules of the Road, Section 6 entitled Speed Restrictions, Subsection C entitled School Speed Zones, to establish a 20-mile-an-hour school speed zone for Horace Mann Elementary School, effective for certain time periods. Staff has requested expedited action.
I move that the rule requiring the ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Taylor. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Move final adoption at this time.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Thomas. Discussion. I'd like to raise one point to kind of make fun of myself. I recently crossed Dodge Street at Ronald's and looked to the south and saw three pairs of signs. The first one said, I don't know, school, speed limit 25 miles an hour. Real big signs on either side of the road. And then some other signs just down the way, basically warning people that it was coming up, and then another sign at the light where it was kind of pointing down saying, this is where, I don't know, kids are going to be crossing the street. So I wrote Jeff and said, are these new signs? When did these go up, and why do they say 25 miles an hour instead of 20 and that kind of stuff? So Jeff told me that they'd been there for some period of time. I don't know exactly how long, but it's like, oh no. It's one of those. So the signs have been there forever, and I just now saw them. Moments. Anyhow, I think we're going to get all that straight, right? And they're going to install 20
New
mile
signs
an hour
will
thing.
be up, I believe, this week. Yeah.
Good deal. Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 8, alcohol in parks. This is an ordinance amending Title 4 entitled Alcoholic Beverages and Title 10 entitled Public Ways and Property to allow alcohol in park shelters. Second consideration, but staff request expedited action.
I move that the rule requiring the ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Botchway. Discussion.
I don't think we should be expediting a major policy change to our public parks. This is a major change. The county is going in the opposite direction. I know with out at the reservoir, there's been some problems with alcohol-related fights. I don't think we've thoroughly evaluated this, and we should not be expediting such a major change to our parks. We need to allow the public additional time to weigh in, because I know 2 weeks ago when this came before this is a real surprise that we were going in this direction. I thought it was going to be special event related, much in the same way that we allow accommodations in PEDMO and for certain special events. And this essentially opens it wide up. So I do not think we should be expediting it.
Jeff, maybe you could explain why the staff has asked expedited action?
There seemed to be a strong majority of council that wanted to move forward. There's no time sensitivity. If you want to allow an additional reading, that's fine. But generally, on these types of issues, we're going to recommend expedited action unless we feel like there's a strong element of the public that wants to weigh in. This particular issue was vetted at the Parks Commission. The public did weigh in at that point, or at least members of the public did. But if you feel like you want additional time, again, there's no pressing event or shelter reservation that is waiting for this particular change. So it's completely up to you.
I don't have a particular problem with expediting it. I mean, I don't feel super strongly either way. We haven't had any significant input from people one way or the other, I mean, on it. And if the fact that it also was vetted by the Parks and Rec Commission means that it's been out there in the public, you know, for longer. It's not that it just came up in front of council. So, I mean, if people feel strongly one way or the other, that's fine, but I don't have a problem with expediting it.
I'm going to go along with Rockne on this one. I think in principle, it's good to go through the 3 readings. And if there were good, strong reasons for expediting, I'd say, sure, let's do it. But I think I'll just go along with Rockne.
Yeah, I think in deference to your concerns, I think I would support you, and there isn't anything pressing on this, so rally the troops, Rockne.
Got 3 votes. I don't
Yeah,
know, is that enough?
I don't know what.
It requires a supermajority anyway, so looks
to-
like it's going to fail.
Okay,
Yeah,
so.
it takes 6 out of 7 of you. Collapse.
Yeah,
to
all right,
collapse.
so
Okay.
given that, let's just have, take a roll call.
Throgmorton,
No?
Botchway,
No.
Cole,
No.
Mims,
No.
Taylor,
No.
Thomas.
No.
So motion fails,
Move second consideration.
6-0, right?
Second.
Moved by Mims, second by Botchway. Discussion? Oh, wait a minute. What are we doing?
We're doing,
Oh,
we're just
you're
doing regular
for
second
the marriage.
consideration.
Right, yeah, so discussion?
I think my concern isn't, I think this was brought up as a special event-related accommodation, and I think I would support that. I know that Susan originally brought it up just in the context of like a wedding reception, relatively, which I agree with. I think if you're having a special event and you have a server and there's some insurance involved, I would totally support that, much in the same way we do with other parts of our public spaces. And I think that was a necessary and needed change that I think we should support. But the way that it's essentially manifested itself is that I think that it's a major policy change. And my concern is that I know out at the reservoir that there was a number of, they allowed alcohol for a number of years, and there was a number of fights that resulted from having essentially an open policy on alcohol use in public parks. And they went the opposite direction. So I just think that we have to be careful, especially with this, and I really think that I think it probably does need to be updated, and I think people bring up a good point, but not this. This is too big a change from where we were before, and I really have concerns. We're allowing up to a pony keg, is my understanding, up to a pony keg, and that we could have some problems in terms of disturbances in the parks related to excess of alcohol consumption.
My thought on that, Rockne, though, too, is I also want to give, though, some deference to the fact that we have a Parks and Rec Commission.
Yeah.
And the discussion, I think, maybe did start, and maybe they had already been thinking about it, I don't know. I mean, I remember mentioning the one about the request for the wedding, that I had gotten a letter from somebody. So I don't know if that's the only thing that started it or not.
Yeah.
But my thought is they went through, I think, and vetted this very carefully and looked at, just special events versus opening it up more broadly the way it is now. We ask people to serve on those commissions and put in a lot of time and effort, and I think we have a very, very good Parks and Rec Commission. And if they've gone through, and I believe they have, and done their due diligence and believe that this is workable, I'm going to support Parks and Rec.
Well, I think it would be confusing to the public if we do just special events versus no one else can have alcohol. But if you're having a special event, you can. I think that'd be confusing to the public. And I think Parks and Rec has done a lot of thought with this as far as it has to be contained in the shelter, and you have to have the shelter reservation. So I think that's putting the ownership on the person who reserves that shelter to contain the folks that might be drinking at their event.
I have faith in our community that they will, drink alcohol responsibly and make sure that this doesn't become an issue. If that changes, I think that last time, either I or somebody else brought up that Julie will be back before us and change a recommendation and say that we don't need to allow it. But like I said, I know of a friend who has, named maybe John, has frequented, I was just joking, it's not John. That it's, just to be clear for public record.
This is John from Florida.
Yeah, no, but has had these events, and I actually was not aware that, or they were not aware that they needed to have some of these stipulations, and it's gone fine. And so I think that I think we just need to continue with it and hear from feedback from staff and the Parks and Rec Commission as well.
I think there was a fair amount of due diligence on this, and the police department was involved. They looked at regulations in other cities around the state. At the same time, I think we need to see, okay, how is this going to work? But my sense is that it's trying to align the policy and the ordinance with what kinds of behavior they're seeing currently. That this is in fact what seems to be taking place. So let's revise the ordinance accordingly and move forward. But again, I do think anything alcohol related in Iowa City, I think we need to be very clear-eyed about.
Especially in the parks.
Yeah.
Do I remember correctly that in our last meeting, Julie Seidel Johnson spoke to us, but no one from the commission did? I mean, that's why I'm remembering it, but
That's correct.
I wonder if we could have someone from the commission come in at our next meeting and help us understand how they vetted the issue and how the commissioners talked about it, what concerns they discussed and why they ended up recommending what they recommended.
Sure.
I
you can
think
make
that would be
request.
helpful. Yeah, and do you know if any staff members are going to go to the Partnership for Alcohol Safety meeting next week?
I believe Simon will from our office, and usually we have a police representative or two.
Would you ask Simon or whoever attends to bring this topic up and ask the partnership if they have anything they'd like to advise us on? But for the moment, I'll vote in favor of this particular motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
No.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes, motion carries 5-1. Cole in the negative. Item 10, fees for small cell antennae in right-of-way, ROW. Resolution establishing an application fee for small wireless facility permits. Do I have a motion to approve, please?
This is second consideration, staff's expedited action, is that correct?
No?
Yeah.
Not according to what I have in front of me.
I have it, yeah.
Is that?
Item 9?
9.
Yeah.
It does request
Staff
it.
requests expedited.
Item 9. We always just did item 9, didn't we?
No, we just
Oh,
did number
I'm
8.
sorry. I
Can
skipped
we do
ahead of
8?
that.
This is
Excuse
9.
me.
Oh, you were reading number 10?
Yeah. Yeah, so let me read item 9, please. My bad. Small cell antennae in ROW, right-of-way. This is an ordinance amending Title 16 entitled Public Works, Chapter 1, entitled Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Right-of-Way, to establish a permit process for placement of small cell antennae in the right-of-way. This is second consideration, but staff requests expedited action.
I move that the rule requiring the ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Taylor. Discussion. I think
You can tell how much attention we pay to what you're reading. We didn't realize you read the wrong one. At least I didn't.
I didn't. I was looking at the right ones.
Tonight, though, you needed
I
a
was looking.
recording. You could just,
I know.
push the thing. Okay.
know.
So, discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Botchway?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Move final adoption at this time.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Botchway. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 10, fees for small cell antennae in right-of-way. Resolution establishing an application fee for small wireless facility permits.
Move resolution.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, seconded by Thomas. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 11, council appointee salaries. This is a resolution on unclassified salary compensation for fiscal year 2018 for the city manager and city attorney, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an amendment to the contract of the city attorney to provide for the across-the-board salary adjustments provided to all city employees.
Move resolution.
Moved by Botchway,
Second.
seconded by Thomas. Discussion. Thanks to both of you for doing such good work over the past year. It's a pleasure to approve this.
Makes our life easier.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Motion carries. God. Some verb just popped out of nowhere. Motion is carried, passes 6-0. Item 12, council appointments. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. Item 12, there are 2 vacancies to fill unexpired terms on the Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term on the Airport Zoning Commission, 1 vacancy for a Jefferson Street representative to fill a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission. No applicants were received for those positions. We need to re-advertise, and the deadline for applications will be September the 12th. We also have 2 vacancies to fill 3-year terms for the Telecommunications Commission. We received an application from Brenton Matthew. There's no gender requirement, I guess, for that one. Are we okay with appointing Brenton? He seems to have all the
Yes.
credentials that
Matthew
would be
Brenton.
appropriate. So we will do that.
Yeah, I
And
think
we have to re-advertise for the second vacancy, and the deadline for applications for that second vacancy is September the 12th. Now, I need a voice vote, don't I, for the one appointment we just made? So could I have a motion to appoint Brenton Matthew?
So
I think it's
moved.
Matthew Brenton.
Ah,
There's a comma after Brenton. I think it's last name first.
there you go.
John
Thanks. Yeah,
mentioned it.
okay. So there was a motion
So
to
moved.
appoint
Yeah,
Matthew Brenton.
Brenton.
Yeah. You made the motion?
Yes.
Who second? And motion by Botchway, seconded by Taylor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, community comment if necessary. I understand one of our fine student liaisons, namely Ben, would like to speak to us.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to. A lot of times I feel like the only times we ever talk to you guys is when we need something. Not too often do we get to give updates just in general of what UISG is doing. So in the future, I kind of just wanted to start taking this time to give you guys an update. I mean, the university and the students are a big part of the community, and you might not always understand what's going on or know anything. So that's kind of.
Did you just say we might not know anything?
You know everything, Mayor. Apologies. So anyway, kind of just a brief update of what UISG's been doing over the summer under the helm of Jacob Simpson, former City Council liaison. Always a pleasure. Over a couple months ago, a month ago, we went to the University of Illinois for the Association of Big Ten Students, which is it's a biannual meeting of all the student government leaders from across the Big Ten. I had the pleasure of serving a part of that delegation. It's always interesting to see what the situation is at other student governments. Believe it or not, there are some student governments where their city council does not talk to them, and they don't like them. So I always appreciate being able to brag that at the very least, we always get an honest ear from you all. The next thing is I had a meeting earlier with the Iowa City Downtown District to talk about implementing sexual assault resource posters in all the downtown bars and restaurants. So if you're ever downtown and you're using the restroom and you see some neat little posters that advocate about everything from affirmative consent to intervention strategies, if you see a friend or a colleague potentially being taken advantage of. That was done in collaboration with RVAP, obviously the downtown, along with us here at UASG. And then I also want to extend an invitation for you all to come speak at our Student Senate once we start coming back. I know last year, Mayor and Jeff, you all came to speak at our public access, our version of community comment. If at any time you all want to come speak, feel free to shoot me an email. Otherwise, certainly I expect it. We'll be inviting you all to come, so come at your pleasure. And then the last thing I'd like to talk about, just like RVAP. As we all know, the state senate or the state legislature cut its funding, so it could be shutting its doors soon. I would encourage you all to donate and tell your friends to donate, tell your families to donate. It's a very vital resource for the Iowa City community, the Eastern Iowa community. We began a campaign. We partnered with Brothers and Quintons. We raised about, I think, $2,000, could be wrong, don't quote me on the exact amount, just in one night. And there's been a strong effort coming from the university administrators and students. And then students are coming back. The greatest time of the year in Iowa City, right? The beginning and the end of the semester is always good. The middle kind of gets kind of shaky. But that's all I have for you today, so I will see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Thanks, Ben. Okay, item 14, City Council information. Pauline, why don't we start with you?
I'd like to remind folks of the ribbon cuttings for the schools, August 21st. There are 3 of them. It's going to be amazing if they pull that off, because I think they're starting with, and I don't have the list, I apologize for that, with the first one at like 4 or 4:30, and then there's another one at 5 or 5:30, and then winding up at Weber like at 6 o'clock. So that's going to be amazing if they pull that off, but that's great to see. Good for the school district and for Iowa City. I'd like to again invite folks to the Iowa City Federation of Labor's annual Labor Day picnic. Students are welcome to. Free food. It's Monday, September 4th, Labor Day, noon to 4, Upper City Park. Meat and place settings are provided, and you can bring a dish to share, but you don't have to. It's not required. And beverages also are provided. So, I'd like to see you there.
I'll be there. I've been doing it for 25 years. John?
I wanted to mention last week, Ashley and I actually went on a parks tour with the Parks Commission, where the commissioners and Ashley and I saw the work that has been done over the last year or so on park improvements throughout Iowa City. We saw 9 sites, didn't always get out of the bus, but saw 9 sites. It was really interesting to see the variety and diversity of the projects that were included in the tour. Any of you know what a Gaga pit is? Well, I learned on this field trip.
No clue.
And I have a background in this field. It's
Doesn't
become a
involve
very
Lady
popular, apparently, recreational element. There's one in Pheasant Hill now and one in Upper City Park. So go check. Well, the one in Upper City Park is already installed.
What is it?
Pheasant.
Yeah, so what does one do in a Gaga pit?
What is a Gaga pit?
I just
haven't picked our interest.
It's this. It almost looks like a corral, and what you do in the corral, I'm not exactly sure. Do you throw a ball around? I think. I
It's
think that's
a
it.
modified version of dodgeball.
Oh, okay.
So they took out the construction fencing at Pheasant Hill. I visited that this weekend or last weekend, and so as you can see, it's just a round cement space, I guess,
just
waiting
a
for the
kind of
fencing.
contained space for.
Sounds like the voice of experience.
I am no Gaga master.
So I just end by saying it was a nice follow-up to just having the master plan presented, and this question of complete neighborhoods. I was putting an emphasis on completeness in those neighborhoods where there's the social equity factor that was identified in the master plan. But on the tour, we saw a at least two parks that come to mind, if not more, Pheasant Hill and Windsor Ridge, where these are upper middle-class neighborhoods, shall we say. And they, too, were not complete without the improvements, in my view, at Pheasant Hill and then the Cardigan Park and Windsor Ridge. I mean, Windsor Ridge only has that Windsor Ridge Park, which is really a walkway going through the back sides of the property. So Cardigan will be, I think, more of a destination opportunity for that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's surrounded by all those row houses or townhouses.
Yeah, and in fact, I think the higher density development with the townhouses around it was a good move as well.
Okay, Susan?
Just for those people who got their tickets, reminder that the Farm to Street dinner is on Thursday. Looking forward to doing that. And for those of you that didn't get your tickets, you missed out. Did it last year. It was wonderful, fun evening. So hopefully we have good weather for it again. And as was mentioned earlier, the students are coming back, so watch the traffic. We do still have some one-way streets in the community, and inevitably, people are driving the wrong way on the one-way streets. So just be extra cautious with all the traffic coming in the next few days and people not being real familiar with the community. So say hello, help them out.
Good deal. Kingsley?
So, airport pancake breakfast, I believe, is the 20th, coming up this Sunday. All right, just want to make sure because got really excited. I thought I put it in my schedule wrong, so I'll be there.
What time?
I think it's like 7 a.m.
7 to noon, isn't it?
To noon, yeah. Taste of Iowa City is next Wednesday. I'll be there. And then, I mean, you've all stated some things that I'll be at as well, but I'm doing the Pathways Men Who Cook. And I will be participating and using my executive chef skills to showcase my talents and help fundraise. So I will be making Cajun chicken on a bed of creamy macaroni and cheese. So
Whoa.
Just letting you know. Food Network approved.
I have a couple requests on work session topics. Mark has talked about this question of parking in College Green District for quite a while now. I know following his public comments, we asked staff to respond to that. But I guess I would like to do at least a work session so we can get a sense of what the parking direction is for that particular district. Right now, like with a lot of our inner core neighborhoods, it's essentially used as commuter parking, and that affects the actual landowners as well as people that would like to use the park. So I know that staff is going to look into that particular request that he made, and I think his concern is that essentially the parking study seemed to be more focused just on the north side. So do we have any support for that, to do an actual work session on a parking district for College Green? What do people think about that?
My question is there something that staff would need to do before we do that, or where?
No, not really. I mean, we're going to look to you for direction. I mean, the report that you received in your information packet and that Dan gave a quick overview of today had the parking component to the north side. When we started this, we assumed that whatever was determined for the north side would also apply to College Green or other areas in the core. So I wouldn't expect that we need an additional study or anything like that around College Green, but the consultant's recommendation was not to start with the permit process. It was to start with allowing parking on both sides, see how that goes, and then consider a permit process if you're still not satisfied with the results. But we're not going to move forward with their recommendation or a modified version of their recommendation without your guidance. So as far as I'm concerned, you can schedule the work session topic anytime you want.
Well, I guess that's why I like it, so we get the staff feedback, and then we may decide we don't want to do it, but at least we'd have a work session on it.
I'm fine with it.
That's fine.
Me too.
And related to that, Susan brought up a good point in terms of budget. Right now, the way we left it at our last work session, we had a lot of different things that may or may not.
If you would, you don't have to say any more.
Okay.
I'm going to address that when we get into our work session. That's what I was referring to with
Okay.
regard to September the 5th.
One step ahead of me.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing else.
Okay, so I have a few things I want to mention. First, as I indicated in response to one of the people who spoke during the public discussion period, I'm writing a public statement concerning last Saturday's event in Charlottesville. Ashley has given me some notes that come from prior resolutions, and I want to convert that into a statement, but also make sure it really fits the immediate context. And it's just been impossible to get time to do it up till this. I'll go home and do it right now when we get home or whatever, and go home and lie in bed and write it or something. But I am working on that. The second thing I want to mention concerns our next council listening post. If I remember correctly, the last one we held was in mid-June out in Kiwanis Park, and Pauline and John did that one. Do I remember that correctly?
Yep. Rockney and I.
Rockney and Pauline, yeah. Anyhow, so I think we need to schedule another one probably for September. And my guess is in the first week of September. And what I was going to suggest is that we do it at Uptown Bill's. And I haven't had a chance to do one of these council listening posts, so I'd be eager to nominate myself. And I wonder if anybody else would like to join me.
I would. I haven't done one in quite a while.
Yeah, okay, that'd be good. And Kelly, we need to connect with Tom Gilzenin at Uptown Bill's to see if it would be all right to use it at a defined moment for an hour and a half. I guess that's what a typical listening post is. I think he'd be quite eager, but we just have to pin it down with him. And I don't know if you have his email address. If you don't, just send me a note saying I need the email address, and I'll send it to you. The next thing I want to mention is that tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, I'm going to hop on a plane and go to Burlington, Vermont. And I'm going to do that to participate in a conference of the Mayor's Innovation Project. It's going to last till Friday night or early Saturday morning. I can't remember which. So I'll return Saturday afternoon. I was invited to do this by Merritt County from Des Moines. And once I looked into it, I thought, yeah, this sounds like a really good thing to do. So I'm going to be able to network with other mayors who are encountering the same kind of challenges that we're encountering and are pursuing some similar objectives as we are pursuing. So I think it could be a really terrific event. Now I'll let you know what I learned.
You're going to be 12 miles from my home. I really wish you'd let me go
Oh,
instead.
no, sorry. So Bill McKibben's going to be our keynote speaker. And I assume he'll say a word or two about climate change and what needs to be done. The last thing I want to mention is that the Gazette is sponsoring an Iowa Ideas Conference on September 20th through the 22nd up in Cedar Rapids. And from what I read, it's going to include 250 or more speakers, 8 tracks, 80 sessions, 9 keynote speeches, and opportunities to connect with fellow Iowans about the direction Iowa should take. So I got an invitation to speak at that, and I'll probably accept the invitation, but there are 80 speakers. So. Anyhow, you all might want to take a look at that, and it might be of interest to you in your own for your own reasons. All right, that's enough for me. Jeff?
Yeah, just real briefly, earlier this week, early Monday morning, we had a pretty significant fire out at the landfill. And I just want to comment how well our staff and the mutual aid agencies that responded handled that. In looking back at some of the thermal camera images that we have, the fire really ignited very quickly, sometime around midnight or 1 o'clock, and by the time the call came in at 2:30 or so, it was a pretty good sized fire at that point. Earlier this year, we did a fire exercise out at the landfill and brought all the agencies in, and that I think really paid off because the staff, whether it was fire, police, or landfill staff, really just executed perfectly and got what was a pretty significant, again, large fire under control by noon on Monday. We weren't able to open the landfill because of the rain that afternoon, but we opened for business as usual first thing on Tuesday morning. So just want to commend our staff and the responding agencies that helped with the fire suppression for the work they did on Monday morning.
Way to be prepared. Good job and great job by the staff. Ashley?
The only thing I was going to mention was it's JB's, Mr. Porter's last meeting with us.
Oh, no.
His last week is this week, and we just want to say that we appreciated the work that he's done. You've done a great job, and we wish you very, very well. We've been glad to have you.
Thanks.
We're going to miss you at that desk.
Nice
Eleanor?
desk.
Kelly? Okay, so I think we're in a position to adjourn. So I'd like to may have a motion to adjourn to our work session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Botchway. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.
You're watching City Channel 4. On TV, online, on demand, on Facebook, and now on the go on your mobile device.